Before we get started with questions, I just wanted to start by saying thank you to the fans. Our Hornets fans have been amazing. This is my first year experiencing it, and I heard about it, of course, when I took the job. But just experiencing it on a daily basis or every other day basis has been phenomenal. Obviously, the season didn't go as we wanted it to, but again, just their passion and consistency in terms of showing up and giving the guys support has been amazing. So I wanted to say thank you to you guys.
Jeff, this being your first, I guess, full season, in the position you're in with the Charlotte Hornets, it's, I'm sure, very much an evaluation season of how much or to what extent were you able to evaluate everything, just given the injuries and that entire situation, just kind of going in so many different roster, kind of in and out lineups and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it was certainly challenging to evaluate the roster on whole, just because of what you said. I think we looked yesterday. I want to say we had 45 different starting lineups, which was not far away from setting a record. Again, it's not ideal in any scenario to be able to evaluate, but look, it's also part of it. One of the things that we talked about coming into the season was just establishing a culture of guys being together, hard work, being prepared, and just daily improvement, player development. And by all accounts, I think we achieved a lot of that. So again, the record doesn't necessarily indicate that the season was a success, but when you look at the goals that we set out on the onset of the season, again, there was progress made, and I know we have a long ways to go, but I am pleased with the way that our group handled this season.
Jeff, Steve Reed from the AP. With LaMelo, since he's been here, he's missed almost half the games with injuries. How concerning is that moving forward, especially being, a key part of the organization? And is there anything you guys can do about that in terms of medically to help him out?
Yeah, it's a fair question. We're doing everything that we can. The thing I would say, I'd almost flip it. Like last year, he played 22 games. The year before that, it was 36. This year was 47. So since I've been here, he's improved in that regard. And that's a testimony to him for putting the work in, and our medical performance staff. Is it where we want it to be? No. Is it where he wants to be? No. LaMelo is an incredible competitor, and he knows that in order for us to have the best chance to win and get to where we want to go, he has to be on the floor. So, look, we're providing every resource, and again, at the end of the day, he's putting the time in, he's taking ownership in it, and we're again, I hate to say it, but we're happy the season's over in that regard, and he's able to ramp up and have a healthy start to the season next year.
And that's just a follow up. You feel like he'll be ready for training camp and full go?
Absolutely.
Follow up on that. What is, I guess, your next step for LaMelo? What do you want to see him do next season to take that next leap in his game and just as a leader on his team?
Yeah, it's look, I think with LaMelo, he can be as good as he wants to be, and we've seen that. He's played at an all-star caliber level. He is. I told him this the other day. I've been fortunate, and Charles has too, to be around some great players in this league. And LaMelo is very unique and does some things that no one else can do, quite frankly. I think to answer your question specifically, I think the next step is two things. One, to continue to elevate his presence on the defensive end. The coaching staff has done a tremendous job of, pushing him on that side of the ball, and he's responded. And then the second thing I think is just with his voice, just from a leadership standpoint, continuing to push guys in the right way and get the best out of them. Because, look, everyone knows he's our engine, and as he goes, we go. So continuing to it's a sign of respect when teams are double teaming you and triple team you and having to switch up the defenses, and sometimes he gets taken out of games. But again, that's the ultimate sign of respect. So can he continue to lead from a vocal standpoint?
Also, we haven't spoken to you since obviously the deal with Mark. What can you say about just where he's with the organization right now? Can you speak about, I guess, what happened there, and what is his future? What do you guys feel about him moving forward here with the franchise?
Yeah, And I appreciate you asking that Rod. Look, I'm not going to get too much into that, to the trade and what happened. Quite frankly, we're past it. Mark's back. The one thing I'll say is this: it's a testimony to Mark's character on how he handled the situation. I've been around for a decent amount of time in the league, and there's not many guys that would have handled it the way that he did. And again, just his character and the way he was raised by his parents, and just his professionalism, his agent, it was a tremendous amount of help during that process. And look, it's unfortunately it was a little bit of a kind of a I don't know, just the reality of the NBA. Sometimes those things happen, but again, he came in right away and went back to work and just reintegrated with the group and was amazing throughout the process.
Started with an opening statement to the Hornets fans, and you said on multiple occasions how you don't want to expedite the process. You want to take your time, be patient. What is your timeline going for those fans, and how long can they expect to, get a competitive team out on the court?
Yeah, I think the goal is always to be a consistent winner. We want to, put a sustainable product on the floor. That's been my goal since I interviewed with the job, and fortunately, it's in line with ownership and Charles's vision as well. Again, look, no one's happy that we won 19 games this year. No one in the locker room, no one in the front office, the coaching staff, medical performance. That's not fun, quite frankly. So in terms of timeline, obviously the season just ended. Charles and I are going to have some long conversations and really reevaluate and reflect on exactly what this team needs. But look, the goal next year is to win, to compete for the playoffs, and we're going to do everything in our power to do it. Again, I will double down on we're not going to expedite anything. We're not going to skip steps. I think there's plenty of examples that we've seen around the league and other sports teams and franchises that when you try to skip steps and go too fast, that's when big mistakes end up happening. Ones that really, really hard to crawl out of that hole. So we're going to be patient, diligent, opportunistic, very strategic in terms of how we build it. Because as I've said before, I don't have any interest in coming here for a year, making the playoffs, and then we jeopardized our future or compromised our flexibility moving forward, and then we're out of the playoffs for another 3 or 4 years. So.
Can you talk a little bit about Brandon Miller and the seriousness or lack thereof of his injury, and also where he stands in terms of being a pillar of this team?
Yeah, Brandon is, I'll start kind of with the latter part. He's certainly a pillar of this team. He too is a guy who, again, just with a combination of his age and skill set and positional size and really his approach, his mindset, he wants to be great. He can be literally as good as he wants. So he's certainly a pillar. He is, the thing that I've appreciated about him the most since the injury happened is just it's almost like his engagement level even took a higher step. And again, that's a testimony to himself and our coaching staff continue to push him. Every day he's working on his left hand. He's watching extra video. He's almost basically been like an assistant coach out there. We joke all the time. Sometimes he sees how frustrated the coaches get at times because he's like, we just went over this play and it didn't go how we wanted it to go. But I think during this time he's been able to figure out how to kind of give himself and his teammates more grace at times, but at the same time, you got to continue to push. But he is, his injury was unfortunate and fell on in the Utah game, his wrist. And yes, unfortunately, it's not just a quick fix, ankle sprain. It takes time. He's still a couple months away from being able to just be out there and truly his return to play in terms of playing games and things like that. But he's expected to make a full recovery and be ready to go next season.
Training camp, he'll be full go, you think?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
One more follow-up on Rod's, if you don't mind, about the Mark Williams thing, since we really haven't heard from you on that. But did you have any recourse once the Lakers did what they did? I mean, did you protest that? Did you say, hey, wait a minute, what? You can't do that. You can't rescind a trade? Or was it just like they can do that?
Yeah, again, I appreciate the question. I'm not going to comment on that just for various reasons. I appreciate the question.
Jeff, we saw this coaching staff and Charles and even some teammates, challenge LaMelo to up that defensive game this year. From your perspective, what did you see in terms of his buy-in to that this year?
Yeah, look, again, I think it starts with the coaching staff. That's one of the reasons why I believe Charles is a great coach because he coaches all the guys the same. And there's a standard that needs to be set, and he and the rest of his staff have done a tremendous job of holding that standard. And look, nothing that is, you guys know this, that's worth anything is going to be easy. It's going to be really, really hard. And winning in this league is really hard. And you got to do some things that you're probably not comfortable doing at times. But to LaMelo's credit, he's got better defensively. You can look at the numbers, you can watch the tape, his effort, not just on the first point of attack, but he's trying to fight through screens and get back in there and rebound. And I think he might have got a charge. I don't know. I can't give him too much credit on that one just yet, but just his over level of physicality, he's one of the best rebounding guards when he wants to be, just because of his size and instinct. So he certainly rose to that occasion. Again, don't get me wrong, he can go another step, and that's going to be the challenge this summer. You clearly can do it. Can you do it consistently on a nightly basis?
Jeff, how active do you expect to be on the trade market this upcoming offseason, and how much do you expect to explore it, whether you're getting calls or making calls yourself?
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's hard to say how active. I think, as I've always said, like, we're going to be extremely strategic and opportunistic with how we construct this roster, and very diligent of again, just assets going out, coming in, whatever it may be. So. Look, at the end of the day, it's my job to evaluate the entire roster and figure out what we need to do to ultimately get to where we want to go, whether that's trade, draft, free agency, whatever it may be. So we'll certainly look. I think part of my philosophy is to be proactive with some things. At the same time, we'll get a lot of incoming calls as well because we have some good players. So. Again, Charles and I will get away for a couple weeks and reflect on the season, and come back and start to have some long conversations about it all.
Yeah, you mentioned those good players. They just haven't been on the court at the same time very many times. Is this still a core? Brandon Miller, LaMelo, Miles, even Mark. Is this still a core that you believe in long term?
Very much so. Yeah, they all have their strengths. This was Charles and I's first year, so a lot of it when we opened it up, it was a bit of an evaluation year and period, but again, all four of those guys, and really the whole roster, there were stretches where I think they showed a ton of positive signs, and then there's some areas that we all need to grow in. So look, at the end of the day, we all got to be better, starting with myself, and that's going to be something that, again, we address this summer.
And when you talk about that core four, obviously it's got to be frustrating to only have them together for a handful of games. One of them was briefly gone from here and came back. How do you look at the year of evaluating if they're the core four, and how important can they be to your franchise moving forward?
Yeah, as I opened up with it certainly doesn't make it easy to evaluate because, again, you just don't have a ton of minutes or sample size or data, that would let that evaluation period be easier. But that's pro sports. That's our job. We gotta figure it out, one way or another. Again. Yes, they didn't all get minutes together, but they all got minutes, with some sort of combination with the four of them. So it's not easy, but again, you guys know, no one's feeling sorry for us, and we'll find a way to continue to evaluate them.
When you reflect on this season, how much do you look at the G League team and the emphasis you had to put on two-way contracts, people you're bringing up for that roster to fill out when you had your core four and your starters not able to play for a good amount of the year? Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up. I certainly want to congratulate Coach Baker and G League GM Colt Hill and all those players, the players that contributed to Greensboro this year. First time making the playoffs in Greensboro history. And again, kind of part of the question that I answered earlier, I think we had 45 different starting lineups, and the reason that we were able to remain competitive in most of those games is because some of the guys that were in Greensboro were able to come to the Hornets and contribute. And again, that's just a testimony to that, the culture there. We take pride in us being one program. That way, when there's assignments, the terminology is the same. Most of the plays are the same, things like that. So again, that's just you really want to shout out Coach Baker and his staff for keeping those guys ready.
Said the evaluation process has been a little murky because of the injuries. With the core forward players out, it also means the role players are kind of playing out of position or out of their comfort zone. So how good of a grasp do you feel you have with the ancillary pieces on this team?
Yeah, it's a great point. part of the, I guess, the silver lining of Brandon, missing the rest of the season was Nick Smith, right? And being able to start, and you get a ton of minutes. And then, look, I want to shout him out as well, because he, beginning of the season, not in the rotation. He spent some time in Greensboro. And again, if you know anything about Nick, he loves the game. He's going to maximize himself. He puts the time in. He works, and he was ready. And again, was it always pretty? No, but he had a ton of possessions and games that he helped us. And I'm happy for him. And again, it's just testimony to him for staying ready. But it was a challenging part of the season. Just that, again, we didn't have that consistent opportunity to view those guys.
With T-John, how would you evaluate his rookie season, and looking back on the draft? Again, what made you guys, I guess, look at him to take him where he did at that spot?
Yeah, I would say he had a season that was probably pretty consistent with the second youngest player in the NBA. There were some good moments. There were some not so good moments. But none of that came to surprise with us. Like, we knew it was going to be a learning curve. You come from the French league and then try to assimilate to this level. It's hard. Again, playing against grown men, it's hard. It's really, really hard at this level. And we knew it would take some time. And, everyone's developmental curve or path is not linear. You see some guys having a tremendous rookie season, and the rest of the NBA career is not pretty. And then you see some guys have some slower starts, and they end up figuring it out a bit later. But again, I think the more important thing is the second part of your question. The reason we drafted him was for their intangibles. He's an incredible worker, incredible competitor. He's a sponge. He's coachable. Again, the guy is in the gym more than anyone. He comes back at night. He loves it. He wants to be great. And again, if we had to do it again, we would. We know that at the end of the day, he's going to maximize himself, and ultimately, we still believe that he's going to be a consistent rotational piece on this team.
The other thing is the playoffs obviously start this weekend, but you guys obviously won't be a part of it. This is 9 years now for the franchise. Like, how does that, in your mind, turn around? How do you guys get this drought ended next year?
Yeah, it's the best part of the year. This one, because the Masters was yesterday, so that's always a great event. And then in the play, going right into the playoffs, and it's I love this time of year. Like, if you're a basketball fan, an NBA fan, basketball's on all the time. The intensity ramps up, just the level of focus, level of detail, engagement, all of it. So. Yes, that is our goal. I'm not going to sit here and say we'll be there next year, because I just don't know. We have to, again, Charles and I really need to sit down and reevaluate and reflect on the season and figure out what we need to do to get there. And again, if that's next year, if that's 2 years from now, I don't know when it's going to be, but the goal is always going to be to build something that's sustainable.
And Jeff, to that, ownership at the beginning of the year talked about being in the second inning of a 9-inning ball game. Where are you guys now?
Biggest baseball guru. So, look, this was year one. I don't know the analogy I'd give, but it was year one, and a lot of it was just the evaluation process. I hate to sound like a broken record, but I can't emphasize enough. When you try to skip steps and you go overpay a free agent, or you make a trade that completely jeopardizes your future, it can handicap you, and you'll be stuck for a long time. So. I would say we're certainly still in the premature stages, or the infancy stages, or whatever you want to call it, to build this thing the right way.
And what's one thing you think you've learned the most after your first full season as EVP here with this franchise?
Mike asked me to do a lot of things that I don't want to do. So, no, I think just it's certainly not an easy job, but I think the thing that I've known this, and it was just emphasized to me more this year, just the ability to be able to do it with really good people. Because the job it's challenging in a lot of ways. But again, I believe in our group. I love our group. And when you come together and do it with really good people, it's that much more rewarding.
You were obviously very confident when you did bring on Charles Lee last summer after his first season. How would you evaluate that season, and just maybe even some of the things that we don't see behind the scenes?
Yeah, Charles is, again, tremendous. I couldn't ask for a better partner. We couldn't ask for a better head coach. I would say don't pay attention to the record. any I don't care what coach you have. If you have 45 different starter lineups, it's going to be really really hard to have success and have a just a consistent product on the floor. But he's been, again, he's seen winning at the highest level. He has 2 championships, as I said when we hired him. A lot of it, again, was player development and accountability were 2 of the biggest reasons why we hired him. He started in the player development space. That's very, very important to him. So, again, you go down our roster, I think I'd say most of the guys got better in some capacity. Take Musa, for example, right? Like Musa was essentially out of the league after he got waived, and we picked him up. And I give all the credit to Charles and Musa himself for embracing his role. And but it really, again, Charles and his staff for developing him. And then the accountability piece, as we talked about, like he coaches all the players the same. He holds them all accountable. There's a standard, there's expectations, and at the same time, he's able to invite them over for his house and have a nice dinner and go for a coffee with them, whatever it may be. So he has that unique blend of being able to be hard on them, but at the same time show a consistent amount of just love and gratitude for them as well.
And Jeff, you mentioned ownership earlier. You said it was also your first year working with them. What would you just say? What was it like communicating with them? What was the communication like? What was their involvement in decisions? I just kind of want your take on that whole thing.
Yeah, those guys have been great. I'll say I'd known Rick for some time before, and Gabe, getting to know him, he's been fun as well, and the rest of the ownership group, like they've been tremendously just supportive, resourceful. In terms of involvement, I communicate to them basically every day, every other day, whatever it may be, but they're no more involved than any other owner I've been around. So again, they do a tremendous job of, again, providing us with the resources and the support that we need, and then they let us make the decisions and stay out the way. And I think ultimately that's the way things should be ran to have success at this level. So again, they've been tremendous.